So the question that I'm asked the most often because of the content that I share is, what is it exactly about home ownership that allows a person to grow wealth? Well, there are a couple of things that you guys can learn about today that will help you understand that process. So, number one, your home is also like a deduction, a tax deduction, similar to your dependents, your children. So you can actually utilize a good portion of what you pay in the first few years of your home ownership toward reduction in your taxes every year. So that's one major thing. Another thing that comes along with home ownership is every time you make a mortgage payment, you're effectively paying yourself. A lot of people don't realize that. When you're paying your rent, you're paying someone else. If you pay down on your mortgage, you're actually paying you. And this is how that works. So one of the things that's consistent with real estate is that your property is going to increase in value year over year. Why is that? Well, because land is a limited commodity. So it makes sense that as the population increases, as people expand, there's less and less land available. Automatically, you increase in value. It's a supply and demand situation with real estate, and that is the primary reason why we see this happening. So in addition to that, in addition to the fact that just while you're living in your house, your home is automatically gaining value. During that time also, as you pay down the mortgage, you are paying into your equity. So equity is one of the major assets of home ownership, and it's something that people have been utilizing in the United States for sure since the 1950s all the way up until today. So it's the reason why getting more people to own homes is a benefit for the economy. It's the reason why there's so much within the federal government that is fueled toward growing the home ownership base, because it is a great healthy thing for the economy when more people can participate in it. So what can you do with equity? You can borrow against your equity, create a line of credit that you can then use for various things, whatever it is that you can make the most money from. You can invest it in business. You can invest it in stocks. You can use it as a down payment on other real estate purchases. You can put some of it into an annuity, which annuities automatically pay you back. You can put it into term life insurance, and I want to put you in touch with Rashad Williams and Perry Scholes for the annuity and for the term life insurance. Term life insurance is basically an insurance policy that most people get for like 15 years. And then at the end of the 15 years, you are able to get that money back plus interest, which is great. Which you can use your equity for that. And there's a bunch of other things that you can do. You can pay for college education for your children, which a lot of people who own homes in the 50s and 60s did. It's one of the major reasons why when we talk about the inequity in FHA lending, when black and brown people weren't given the same opportunity for home ownership in the 50s and 60s and 70s, underneath those discriminatory guidelines at that time period, this was one of the major step ups that home ownership gave to those white families. They were able to fund their college education of their children, right? They were able to do all these things that I just said, investing in business, stocks, annuities. They had that availability because they owned their own homes. And so, of course, there were black and brown people who owned their own homes, but due to discriminatory practices of that time period, there were far fewer non-white population that were participating, but that's not the case anymore. And now there are methods and layers in place. And me as a realtor, I advocate for my clients to make sure that the lenders are acting right. I have a trusted list of lenders and other vendors that I work with that have proven themselves time and time again to really have my clients' best interests at heart. And that's the only people that I'm going to agree to work with because of that. So that is basically, in short, why homeownership allows you to grow wealth. There's some other things that I could add on to that. Also think about it this way, like those are the options with you staying in the home. You could also resell your home once it has gained enough value, and you can take that profit and then move on up from there. It's just really a good idea to make sure that you set yourself up with the first purchase needs to be the right one. I see too many people, and not my clients, but because I typically coach my clients on making good decisions. But I have seen people, and I'm sure you have too, that their first purchase really overextended their budget and they didn't set themselves up for growth beyond that. I had a particular client, ask me, he said, well, look, I really want to buy my forever home with my first one. And so I presented this information to him and explained to him why that might not be a good idea, because, you're setting yourself up you're maxing out your debt to income ratio when you do that. He wanted to buy the biggest property, best property he possibly could, maxing out his budget, not really giving himself any budget wiggle room. And so I advised him to really consider his long-term plans and what that purchase might do to his long-term plans. And he did reconsider. He ended up buying something in a lower budget element, and then planning on later on advancing up into a more expensive property. So that's an example of some of the information that you get from me as your realtor. I really help you see the full scope of the picture before you make a decision. So I look forward to talking to you guys more in the future. I'm wishing you all a very beautiful new year. I hope that you're enjoying your time. I hope that you're spending this time reflecting and honoring the growth that you have accomplished in your own life. Don't underestimate the things that you've done. I really hope that you are, as you meditate on that growth, that you are making your plans for your next step as you go into the new year. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.